the author looks at the power, the danger, the majesty of creation, and is led to ask questions. Who made this? Welcome to Ostracon, a podcast that translates fragments into the whole from which they came. Today we're talking about two poems by William Blake, The Lamb and the Tyger, which I think are most fruitfully read together. William Blake was an English poet and painter in collaboration with his wife Catherine, who lived from 1757 to 1827. He's a complex individual. He's been called a mystic. He claimed to have visions. He's been called a philosopher. His views are quite idiosyncratic. And so a study of his life would be a much longer piece that you may want to look into. But I say, for context, that he was a unique man. We're going to read first The Lamb and then the Tyger. I'll read them and then look at them together. These come from a book called Songs of Innocence and of Experience. The Lamb from the Innocence half of the book, the Tyger from the Experience half. And you can tell they're written in a different voice and with a different attitude, one of simplicity and trust, one of complexity, strangeness, and curiosity. So first, the Lamb. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and he is mild. He became a little child. I a child, and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. And now, from Songs of Experience, the Tyger. Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? And so let me begin by suggesting that the essential lines of both of these pieces are, dost thou know who made thee? Which is the question posed in the Lamb. And did he who made the lamb make thee? Which is the essential question posed in the Tyger. I think they're the crux of interpreting both of these, and they express, again, a strangeness and an awe that might come over many of us when we ask, what is this place that we're in? Why is it like this? And how do I find myself here? I want to think about these poems in 3 levels, if I may. First, what I'll call the level of discovery. Second, the level of internalization. And then third, a level of realization. So first, discovery. There are some surface level things here that are worth a moment of attention. The Lamb treats the idea of the incarnation. He became a child. He calls himself a lamb. I a child and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. So there is a sense of identification. The author, as human, sees himself in connection with God made human in the figure of Christ. And he sees, again, a connection with the natural world, the animals, in the symbolism of Christ, who takes on the symbol of the sacrificial lamb. And he sees both himself and the lamb ennobled by this likeness. But the sense of the poem goes beyond that, into this searching. Do you know who made you? And into this sense of awe that the lamb and even the author himself should be reflective of transcendent, divine, eternal qualities. There is a sense of amazement. And then, in the Tyger, that sense of awe is even stronger. It's an overwhelming awe. The author looks at the power, the danger, the majesty of creation, and is led to ask questions. Who made this? What is the source of this? And I love the line, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? His awe is personally directed because he sees this fearful symmetry as a high order that speaks of an intention and a source. And you think of all the fearful symmetries that might surround us. Most obviously, the intelligibility of the universe. The idea that math, that the far-flung reaches of space, chemistry, physics, that these things are in fact ordered, that they follow laws, that those laws can be understood. And so, in one sense, they're brought close, and yet they're everlastingly far away. Close because they're intelligible to us. We can reach them. We can know them. And the fact that the universe is ordered and subject to exploration and discovery is in and of itself a point of awe. But yet, they're eternally distant because they don't seem in any way to depend on us. They seem to be true regardless of us, whether we know them or not. And the expanse of them can at times be quite crushing. The distances of space and length of time, the mysteries that we continue to search, the origin of life, the question of its long march upward into complex forms. And then coupled with that, the sort of savage reality that comes from our contingency on these laws of nature, that we need to eat, drink, and sleep, and need shelter, that we can only be in one time and place despite the longings of our heart, our memories, and our hopes, this sense of constrainedness, this sense of vulnerability, and of being contingent on all the other things that we need in order to be healthy, safe, happy. It is a fearful symmetry. It's a fearful symmetry that the Tyger stands in for as an image, but that prowls about all of us in our lives. But notice, again, that like the lamb, it leads him to a sense of awe. It leads him to a question of source, It leads him for a search for purpose, because the fearful symmetry is too great, is too majestic. He seeks a corollary to himself in it. He seeks an answer in it. He thinks, I wouldn't be here with all of these hopes and fears and with this sense of self, prowled about by this fearful symmetry, if it did not point to this thing that the hope and the innocence of the Lamb also points to. He's deriving out of it the need for a non-contingent source. And that is the sense of life, is that confronted by greatness, by struggle, by great acts of sacrifice, of endurance, of perseverance, of heroism, of innocence, of virtue, confronted with those exemplars, we're brought to awe of a creation that is so much larger than ourselves. And, we wrestle with these tigers. We all wrestle with them. I mean, we hope, even in the course of this podcast, to wrestle with tigers, that the art that we're going to face and try to understand and try to draw something meaningful and personal from, some of them will be tigers. Some of them will be challenging. Some of them will speak of the great losses that we experience, but we're not going to turn away from them. We're going to ask the same question: who made you? We're going to ask, what does this mean? What does this tell us about our source and destiny? Because it's too powerful to be ignored. So now, moving on to the second level I wanted to discuss, which I termed the level of internalization. In moving from innocence to experience, the author of these two poems makes a move from acceptance to maybe incredulity, maybe skepticism. I prefer the first to the second. I don't think the speaker in the Tyger is a skeptic. I think he's overpowered with what he sees and is incredulous that he who made the Lamb made thee. But he's not overwhelmed beyond asking the question. He's led to ask the question because he feels there must be a connection, and it's a question of how he will understand and internalize it. Let me propose that it's easy to put God into a box that is acceptable to us, in saying, this is great, he's saved me. He loves me and he's saved me. And he knows me. And it feels good. And it feels like the lamb. Look at this lamb. It's white. It has this soft coat. It's beautiful. And let me tell you where you came from. It's easy to see. It's easy to see where the lamb came from because it's so innocent. It's so lovable. It won't hurt me. It's not a threat to me. It doesn't ask any great sacrifice of me. It's not dangerous to me. And so when he sees the lamb, he attributes the lamb to the divine and is willing to stop. And maybe it's easy. Maybe it's easy to stop. It is substantially more challenging when the things that make us who we are, the things that bring us to our creation day by day, that bring us to our highest and greatest and best selves, it's much harder when those things are challenging. It's not so easy to allocate, and it's sometimes undesirable to think that we would be asked to sacrifice in order to become the greatest people that we are meant to be, in order to live a life of principle, of value, of virtue, in order to not give up, in order to give to others what is their due, to give to others what they deserve, and this looks a lot of different ways. I mean, it's, of course, there's the extraordinary example of those that give all, even sacrifice their lives for the sake of the good or the true. But there's also the person who day by day cares for their struggling elderly family member, the person who day by day cares for their children, the person who day by day struggles doing the best they can in situations that are very challenging. People who are faced with natural disasters, war, disease, struggle. And out of that, many times the highest and most noblest deeds of the person are made possible. But it's not so easy to look at these situations of sacrifice, challenge, danger, and to make the connection that the author does with the lamb. Instead, the poem is calling us to ask the question of the tiger, to ask the question of, this brings me to a sense of awe and purpose, and I'm led to ask where it comes from and where it directs me. To make the move of searching for the higher cause. In other words, to move beyond a sense of, these are things that I like and are easy and are good for me, and so that's God, and then everything else is something else. To make the move where all things speak of awe and purpose. So then third, a level of realization. There's another place you can go with the question of the tiger. Did he who made the lamb make thee? Because the author is not willing to attribute it entirely to God as he is in the lamb. He leaves it open. Now, part of that, I think, is to give us the opportunity for the hard search that I described at levels 1 and 2. But part of it also might be interpreted to be because the answer is not singular, because we live in the fall. The state of the world is also a result of how we live. People go hungry when there is enough food. People die alone. The world is full of injustice and unfairness. And while some of that unfairness may be the result of the impersonal laws revealed to us by science, not this part. So the other thing that the tiger calls us to, when we look at not just the awe-inspiring form of the tiger, but when the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, whose work is that? Who made that part of the world? What role do we have in that making? And what can we do, even in the smallest things of our personal life, to change it? Blake is asking this too, I think, because we are a part of our creation. We're given a role in the world. We're given the freedom to choose how we react to these exemplars of beauty and challenge, and to use what we take from them for the good. So what at first seemed like an utterly pat, rhymey 18th century piece, maybe read it again.